Hi everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WC Reader, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my mid-month wrap-up. So actually, by the time this gets up, it's going to be less mid-month and very close to the end of the month, but I wanted to stop and talk about these books because technically today is the mid-month of the month. So the first one that I read for the month of January was Forbidden Kisses with her millionaire boss. So this is a Harlequin romance novel. It is my first from the romance line, and we're following Lynn and Carl in this one. So Lynn is this heiress who doesn't want to, she's from Kenya, so she didn't really sound like what this cover portrays, so that was a little weird. But if you've read Harlequin, you know that people sometimes just don't match what the cover is giving. But it was interesting because she is an heiress. She doesn't want to take over her grandfather's company. She wants to prove to him that, she can run her own company. So she links up with Carl and she's like, let me come work for you and do my 3D printing designs, and maybe I can get a contract with you in the future. So she opts to move to Canada for 3 months because he's like, okay, we can test drive it. You can do some art for my aunt's Kwanzaa party. So I will give this a plus for having a realistic holiday romance timeline, because that is one of my pet peeves with holiday romances. Like, they try to convince you that people can fall in love enough to be married within 1 month, or I've seen less. I've seen like holiday romances start at the beginning of December, and I'm like, there was not enough time to fall in love here. The days go by so fast. And so I like that this started like 3 months out to give them the chance to get to know each other while they were away in this country. And since Carl is like the only one that Lynn knows, it gives her like a chance to form a tight bond with him. And I also like that this actually does not end in a proposal. That's like my pet peeve for holiday romance. It doesn't end in a proposal. It actually ends in a very realistic way. There was a little bit of drama in this with the family. Carl's family, he is estranged from because of just how like he grew up, and they used to pit him against him and his other siblings, and they're not very loving, warm parents. I feel like we could have dove into that a little bit more though in this book. Like, the scene where they came in was very quick and relatively easy. And that could have been fleshed out a little bit more to not only create interesting drama, but also, to give it more well-balanced conversations. They just felt very one note, and it kind of felt like an unnecessary scene. So it kind of slowed a little bit in the middle, but then picked up. I thought this was a cute romance, and I definitely read more from Hannah. So then I read The Seed of Cain by Agnes Gomillion, which is one that I was talking about reading for a while. And I actually need to reread The Record Keeper now, because I'm not gonna lie, there was some stuff I forgot from The Record Keeper, even though I had like the gist of what was going on in that story. And I feel like this definitely went places I didn't expect. I am not a usual reader of sci-fi, and this one started veering into like the sci-fantasy realm, where there's this ancient magic that they're pursuing. We're following Erica, who is general for the rebellion army, and she's getting some backlash for her actions. She is up for trial for what she did to Jones in book 1, and she's found that some people are turning on her. Her friends are telling her to calm down. You're fighting so hard every day, and you need to just chill and relax and actually enjoy life, because what is the point of fighting if you're not going to enjoy the world that we're living in? So we get some interesting new technology here. Like I said, we get some ancient magic. There was some cloning in here. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on. And sometimes I would read, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Oh, this is interesting. And then it'd be like, I don't understand this at all. What's going on? And then the ending, did not expect it all. Read the ending twice, still don't understand it. That's why I kind of want to reread the series. But I will definitely say that it was a very interesting read. It was a good read though. it kept me entertained, and I would definitely check out more from Agnes Gomillion. And then I read two books in the same series. So this is the Abby and Orbit series. This is Blast Off, and this one is Space Race. And these are chapter books. So these are good for kids who are transitioning from picture books into longer books, but aren't quite ready for middle grade yet. So they have illustrations throughout, so that's cute, and they're easy to read. But this one, I like that it's easy to read but also introduces you to concepts in STEM, and I like that it didn't feel info dumpy the way it did it. So this follows Abby. She is Afro-Latinx. She and her family have just been reunited on the Oasis International Space Station. For the last year, she was in Texas with her grandma and her little brother, while her mom was up on the space station and her dad was doing a project on the moon. So they're all together again. Abby is starting her first day of school on the space station, and she's so nervous about if she's going to meet friends, how she's still kind of getting adjusted to the space station. Like, it took her longer to get started with school because she had to get adjusted to what's going on. And she is learning how to make new friends, and I thought this was just a really cute introduction to the series. So then, to follow it up, I read Abby and Orbit Space Race, where now she's kind of met her friends Dimitri and Gracie. She has a little bit of a rivalry going on with Dimitri, which I liked that this book addressed, like, how mean he was, like, at certain points. And it was really just because he was jealous because Gracie was his friend first before Abby came in, and he felt like she kind of took him away. She kind of took her away and made that her friend. And it's very common to feel like that. Like, I think even some of us adults feel like that sometimes, you know, when you're like with your best friend and then their other best friend is around, it's like, but that's my friend. So I like that it addressed that. In this one, so we were dealing with coding, which is something we hear about all the time and how important it is. So at the time period they're in, pretty much everybody codes or like has some, like, learn some basic level of coding in school, so that was cool. And so when you're up in space, you lose a lot of muscle mass, so astronauts have to exercise at least 2 hours a day to just keep their body moving the way it should. So we're learning a little bit about exercise in here, and to make exercising fun, what this station is trying to do is use the exercise equipment. They hook it up to virtual reality equipment so that you can play games while you exercise to keep you engaged. And Abby's class is assigned a project. Well, actually the whole school is, because it's a very small school. The whole school is assigned a project where they have to create their own virtual reality games. And Abby pairs up with Gracie and Dimitri, but they can't decide whose game is best, what idea they're going to go with. And so we kind of see how that turns out to be a little bit messy, but it's a great lesson about friendship as well. In addition to that, I read this comic book series that I was long overdue to read. So I was supposed to read The Tiger Tongue. I got it back in November when I spent the day with Ray, and we had gone to like this black owned comic book store that ended up closing. So I was supposed to read this back then, and then life, I didn't read it. I'm like, okay, I'll just wait. So I finally sat down and read it. So I want to say issue 1 is just like the introduction. So it's about these twin princesses. There's this prophecy that they have to fulfill where basically they have to fight each other for one of them to be crowned the princess. This is a very basic premise we've seen all the time. This was just like a basic setup of the world. So I'm like, I'm intrigued. But then this one, which is issue 2, was the one that really hooked me. And I really like how things played out here. we got to know a little bit more about the girls and like their personality, which I appreciated. And we kind of saw them go through, like, start going through the trials. I'm trying to find some great artwork. Like, the artwork in here is pretty nice. I like it. And so now I need to read the rest of the series, but I don't really like doing single issue comics because it's weird, because then I get to the end, I'm like, but I need more. So the bind up comes out the end of February. So I pre-ordered it, and it has the other 3 issues, because right now there's 5 issues of this. So when I read the bind up, I'll make sure to give the series a full review. And then I had auntie duty the other day, which I've talked about them a few times, but I do try to spend some time with my nieces and read with them and give them books. And so I had this one that I received from Row House, The Carnival Prince, and this one is by Daniel J. O'Brien. And so we sat down and we read this. I thought it would be pretty cool because it does talk about Trinidad Carnival, but it's also like an original story that uses mythological creatures from Trinidadian folklore. And illustration wise, it was just like another really beautifully illustrated picture book. I love the artwork in this. So we had fun reading this original story about this boy who ends up saving Carnival. So it was a great introduction to like some little things that people in Trinidad are used to hearing about. Lots of vocabulary, and I do like that they included a glossary of terms. I actually have to tape this back together because my niece ripped it a little bit. But so it had this nice glossary of terms where it just tells you about some of the different like terminology they use. So they use like a lot of different like little creoles and slang, and it's sprinkled throughout here in the way that you would hear normal people in Trinidad talking. So for the people who don't know, it kind of explains it in here. It explains like calypso and carnival and current rolls and all like the jumbies, everything. This was a little bit advanced for them, so they didn't appreciate it as much as I think like someone a little bit older would, because they're 4 and 6. So I think maybe like the 7 and 8 range would like this a little bit more. But Row House is actually pretty cool. So in addition to sending me that finished book, which I really appreciate, they just sent me like some cards for their business, and they sent me a little bit about them. So I'm just going to read you a little bit about Row House as a publisher, because it is an independent publisher and I do love to support independent publishers on here. So Row House is raising the volume on voices that matter. In 2020, every industry, entertainer, and public brand was forced into an unexpected reckoning. Within the space of 6 months, we saw the realization of those fears: a global pandemic, racist brutality, and treason in DC. These events were all the effects of a system that places profits before people, income over equity, and the tragic belief that America was once great and is now broken. The truth is, America has always been broken. It was just that 2020 called upon each of us to ask ourselves, how can we help fix it? Like the social, economic, and political systems that shaped it, big publishing has big problems. What no longer works begs to be torn down, revolutionized, and reimagined. After leaving her former publisher, founder Rebecca Barucki established Row House in late 2020. Their lack of interest in serving communities beyond what their CEO called an affluent audience led Rebecca to make her mission to create something new, a house at the intersection of personal development and social justice, a refuge for creatives living in the margins. She chose to call it Row House in tribute to her humble beginnings of growing up in a village of brick row houses in a working-class town in New Jersey. Rebecca knows that though these modern homes might look alike on the surface, each home, like a book, contains its unique personality, story, and brand of magic. Row House has created a new model that embraces the village and supports authors from diverse backgrounds from day one. By offering the same terms to every author, a $40,000 advance with a 40% royalty share, we are not only disrupting the economics of book publishing, but are leveling the playing field for all authors. So I don't know much about that advance. Like, it sounds decent to me, but I'd have to talk to my author friends about that. But I like that they're very upfront with what they're paying their authors, so authors can go in knowing they're going to get this amount. And like I said, she just sent me these. She sent me some stuff, so that was pretty cool. I did like that she put a book on my radar I probably would not have found otherwise, because this was originally published by just as a self-published book, but then the author decided to re-release it with Row House. So let's talk about what I'm reading right now. So I am listening to Forging a Nightmare by Patricia Jackson, which is a book that I read in 2021. I do have a solo review video up for this one, so you check it out if you want to. And not enough people are talking about this book for my liking. I made Ray from the Bookmark Chronicles read it, and she really enjoyed it. I'm just rereading it for the vibes and the fun. I needed something after reading Bloodmark that I'm like, I really love and is very modern, and it deals with characters who are black, but at the same time that is not the whole story, and we're not dealing with their racial reckoning or having to help white people discover shit they should already know. So it was cool because this one follows Michael, who finds out that he is the descendant of an angel, and he ends up becoming one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and it's a very crazy ride. Since this is a reread, I don't do a lot of rereads, but I'm actually noticing things that I missed the first time around, so that's really cool. Like, I find that I have a greater enjoyment for it on the reread. So I'm like a little over halfway through that one. And then I started Black Candle Woman by Diane Brown, and I was really hyped for Black Candle Woman. Like, the cover alone got me, but then I love a good multi-generational story, and I'm not that far in this one. I want to say I'm like maybe like 60 pages in, but it's so good so far. Like, I have hopes for this one. I want to sit down tonight and just read as much of it as I can. So I just wanted to tell you how things are going for the month of January so far. I will be back at the end of the month with an update. If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!